For years, many families within our church have been called to foster or adopt children. And so we believe that we're just joining where God has already been working in the life of our church.
Back in 2010, when we were living in Austin, Texas, we felt a calling in our life that we wanted to adopt children rather than having more biological children. That coincided with and was catalyzed by a call from the church that we were attending to jump into foster care locally there in Austin and basically solve a need that the city of Austin had.
My first experience with foster care was when I was living and teaching in Oklahoma City. One of our students in the school had been living in the shelter in Oklahoma City for a longer period of time than should have been. Because I was a teacher in his school, they could place him with me as kinship. So I literally called about him on a Monday, and he was in my home by Friday. He was with me for a year before he returned back to his birth mom. And a really emotional roller coaster of a year, but to see how he flourished in a stable home was pretty incredible.
It was a good thing for us to see the church play out in that role of assisting people, not just for our church, but for the city, the county that we lived in.
The first century church was very active in adopting children. In fact, it was a common practice during the time of the early Roman Empire to literally throw unwanted children on trash heaps outside of town. And Christians, during the first century, the early church, Christians would go outside of the city walls and gather these unwanted children. They didn't make them slaves. They adopted them as sons and daughters.
My job moved us here in 2012, and so we got to start that process all over again in Tennessee.
I had my hand in a lot of different foster care initiatives, and it still was a burden on my heart and a passion, but I wasn't going to foster again single. And the Lord let me live in that for about 10 years. And so about 3 years ago now, the Lord just really laid it on my heart again and said, now is the time.
We had several placements here that ultimately led to Christian and Amaya that you see running around the church. We fostered them for 3.5 years, and then that adoption came full in 2018.
Mm-hmm.
I have a foster son who is now 3. He was placed with me when he was 11 months old. At this point, we're hopeful to move towards adoption. But again, the world of foster care is up and down, up and down. What you're told one day is different than what you're told the next. And so huge lessons in trusting God is big enough and good enough for his story, for my little one's story, and then also in being able to take care of me through it. So.
This is a reflection of who we are as the people of God. God, through Jesus Christ, has adopted us to be part of his divine family, not because we have his spiritual DNA, but because he loves us. And so it seems natural that we would join the families already adopting and fostering within our church family, but also join the bigger family of God historically and live out who we are as Jesus followers. And this is why I'm excited that my family will participate in the LH360 family, because it allows us to help other families, because we don't feel called to bring more children into our home, but we know that we are called to support those who have, either financially or in more tangible ways. And I can't wait to see what God does, not in just families' lives, but also how God just continues to shape our church as we add all these young children to our church family too.